something I read that you shared around people aren't always what they seem. That really sort of stuck out to me. And the other part that kind of reflects that as well is when I was chatting with Dave Pulteney. He's a vicar in the Midlands, and a really lovely guy. And he said he was talking around his experience at Soul Survivor, and he kind of said, I think we were just too naive. And I grew up in a Christian home, and I took everyone at face value.
Yeah.
I always thought like, oh, they're lovely, you know. And my assumption was their worldview was the same as mine. The way they saw me was the same way I saw them. And I remember. You remember Kevin Frost? Do you remember him?
Yeah.
He came to the church I used to. You know, I led worship and stuff as a teenager in there, and he did this. I don't know how much it cost, but the leaders at the time hired him to do a gig. And I remember, you know, I loved his songs. I loved how, you know, all those 90s words of being abandoned and like the freedom in worship, all that sort of stuff. And it really inspired me. But I remember him, I was with a girl a couple of years older than me that I fancied. And I remember him saying to her, oh, what are you doing afterwards? And he was in his 40s or 50s or whatever. And she would have been 18 or 19. And I just thought, oh, he's not what I thought he would be.
Yeah.
But that didn't help me very much. Because I just thought, oh, he's just whatever. He's just a bit nefarious or whatever, or that's going on. But there's the sense that unless you've been through crap, your understanding of truth is limited, especially when you're understanding other people.
Definitely.
And so, I mean, for me, I wanted to ask, another question I wanted to ask is, what does wisdom look like from your perspective? Because I was thinking, with your experience with work that you do, just reading your blog posts and stuff that you shared, there's real wisdom there. And I was thinking, well, how do you shape that? Because, again, I'll return to a sort of church, and it feels like it hasn't grown up since I was a teenager, and think, wow, is there truth there? Is it still naive? Is there wisdom?
Yeah.
Is there that stuff of when the two women approach Solomon and say that it's my child, well, I'll cut it in half and you have both. Where is that stuff? And so, yeah, how do you approach it at that point? Are a lot of us just still pretty naive, and we're not able to see the self-serving or narcissistic or the abusive, or just the ungodly ego that seems to reduce people into being controlled?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things, because I think there is still massive naivety around, but I think it comes from a self-protection thing, probably psychologically, in that whole we want to see the best in people, and truthfully, we're kind of cultured into seeing the best in people as church, and you know, and I'm a big fat proponent. You know, one of the things that we model in my staff team is assume the best.
Yeah.
Assume the best. If somebody says something awkward and clangy, assume that they meant well before you've got evidence to the contrary, but it doesn't mean you don't check. That's wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom is assume they meant well, but check they meant well. That came over a bit awkward. It's made me wonder if you think this. I'm assuming you don't, but wisdom, I think, it does have to come with experience, but it also has to come with humility, and it has to come with this openness to the world not always being as nice as we want it to be. Because psychologically, we just try and protect ourselves. You know, it's why we victim blame. We go, oh, well, if she hadn't worn that skirt, or if she hadn't have been walking out that time of night. Because if it's her fault that she got, attacked, then actually the world is still a safe place for us, because I won't wear a skirt like that. I'll make sure my kids don't, and we'll get them home before 9. And so what we're really trying to do, it's a psychological self-protection thing of, I want my world to be safe, so I have to construct a world in a way that makes me feel safe, even if it's not. Yeah. And I think we do that with leaders, because I need my world to feel safe. I need my faith to feel secure. So I cannot have a world in which Mike Pilavachi, for example, can be capable of doing those things, because that dismantles a lot of my understanding. And it makes me have to question a whole bunch of things, which frankly is really uncomfortable, and I don't want to. So there's a lot of comfort that we try and create, which then means that we make ourselves, we choose to be naive. And so there's a real humility and there's a cost to not being naive. But equally, for those of us who perhaps have been through the hard times and been through the rubbish, there's a real importance to us making sure that we pass on what we've learned. That we raise our kids to question things and to know that there's a darker side to life, to understand that what we see might not be what we get. And I think I could sit on my soapbox for hours about how important it is that we do this in our schools, at our youth groups, and at home. I've literally created a parenting seminar on how do we do these conversations with our kids? How do we make sure our kids don't succumb to some of the vile messaging that's around at the moment? Like, how do we help them think critically? But that's how we raise wise children, a wise next generation. But for ourselves, there's a lot of humility. I don't know everything. My judgment might be off. And there's this willingness to bear the cost of, well, the world might not be quite what I want it to be, and I'm prepared to wrestle with that discomfort.
Yeah. So the kind of there's been a flip, I guess, in me where I'd always think of the best in someone. I'd trust them until they lost it. And that was always how I managed. But yeah, culture, I think, is now taking us to a thing of, well, what have you actually got that either is useful to me? What value do you add? What can you bring to the wider group? It seems so anti...
Jesus.
Jesus. It does. What are you seeing? Like, one of the stats that you said or the statements you said when we were talking on video a couple of weeks ago, on a video call, was essentially there isn't a percentage difference in domestic abuse really in the church as outside of it. And where I'm still sort of thinking, I'd love to get back into church. I'm like, wow, that's the stuff that I think must still hold people back from getting involved in different communities and putting their time and themselves into it. So why is that? What are some of the things that you've learned from? How long have you been in this?
So I've been at Restore for 6 years now. So
what are some of the patterns, or why is that? Is it always been like that? Is it always going to be like that? What is it down to our naivety as Christians? Is it down to our lack of wisdom? How are people? Because when you were telling me some of those things, I was thinking, oh gosh, what do I apply with my wife Abby? Like, some of those controlling things?
Yeah.
One of her friends I don't really like. I go, do you have to hang out with them? It makes you a bit like prickly when you're home. And I'm thinking, gosh, is that one of those things? Even you're saying it is. So there's a propensity in me to do some of that stuff naturally without even thinking about it.
There's a propensity in all of us. Like, we just have to be honest about that and go, we all have a tendency to want to control the world around us.
Yeah.
And sometimes that leaks out into the people around us. And so, but acknowledging that and then going, maybe next time I won't handle it like that. That's good. But that's the thing. That's the thing about truth telling, is acknowledging, going, oh man, I think that was a bit controlling. Sorry. As opposed to nothing to see here. That didn't happen. You're making a big deal out of it. That's the difference between us being human and broken. And, truthfully, I think that, ever since the fall, we've had this desire to control everything and everyone around us. But actually, when we're able to catch it and go, oh, I really would love you to stop seeing that person because I don't think they're a good influence. I don't think they bring out the best in you, the things, and go, but actually, you get to choose who your friend. Like, when we step back and go, I'm not going to say that anymore because that's not fair. You need to make your own mind up. That's the difference between like an innate desire or, urge to do something. But when we catch ourselves and go, probably shouldn't do that again, then we're okay.